to the best Jojo channel ever. Welcome back. Today we are reacting to Debunking Araki Forgot Part 3 Stardust Crusaders. Now this was donated during the Christmas stream, which is why I'm wearing this. And I thought to myself, might as well make this a video because this could be very interesting. So get comfortable and let's go through this 22-minute video. I'm hoping this is gonna be really well made and really interesting. If not, I'm banning whoever made me react to this. All right, let's check this out.
Hey, Hamon the beat.
All right, well that's the name of the channel. Be sure to check it down below. You know the drill.
This is what we've really been waiting for. Part 3 is not only the most well-known JoJo part, it's also the one with the most misinformation surrounding it. So in this video, I'll be covering almost everything people claim Araki forgot in Part 3.
Okay.
The first one is also the biggest.
Oh, yeah.
Dio's coffin. But it is also one of the easiest to disprove.
Yeah.
In Part 1, Erina and the infant Lisa used the coffin to escape from the exploding ship. In Part 3, Dio is found underwater 100 years later in the coffin. I have seen a massive amount of people who think that there must have been a second coffin and that its existence is a plot hole. This is confusing to me since there was never a second coffin. The manga and anime both show a secret compartment in the coffin where Dio hid that he entered before the ship exploded. At the end of Part 1, Erina is seen sitting in the red-lined portion of the coffin. In Part 3, we can see that portion is removable and there is space underneath. The amount of people that do not even know about this is staggering, so I'd like to make sure that as many people as possible are at least aware of it. The existence of this secret compartment also makes perfect sense. If Dio ever had to hide inside, he would need a way to protect himself just in case it is opened in direct sunlight. However, even after knowing, there are still some people that will try to argue about how Dio managed to get inside. Some explanations have been given in a couple of different JoJo novels, but those are non-canon, so I will not be using those.
Okay.
Really, I'd say the answer is as simple as he took Jonathan's body and just walked over and got inside. But people seem more particular about details, so I'll go over those. Some people have asked how Dio got inside the compartment when Erina was already there, or how she didn't notice. Considering that it's a secret compartment, there's probably a secretive way to open it. If Dio had customized a coffin that can shoot out a crystal from the inside to kill people, I'm sure that he would have had a way to open the coffin straight into the bottom portion, either from the lid itself or through a false bottom.
Is just like,
as for how Erina wouldn't notice the movement of the coffin, I think the swaying of the boat along with
this far is just asking too many questions.
For that.
The other points are valid, but this
Erina left the coffin
people complaining and people explaining it, I disagree with both. Like,
at the end of Part
come on,
1,
dude.
Erina was floating in the open coffin and was rescued off the coast of the Canary Islands. I'd say it's reasonable to suggest that in a time period with no electricity, Erina is most likely to have been rescued during the daytime, during which Dio would not be able to go outside of the coffin. There was no reason that Erina would take the coffin with her, so it eventually sank to the seabed, where it was found 100 years later. This time, the coffin was opened after the sun had set, so Dio was able to escape. Another common topic is how Jotaro got all of the objects in his cell.
Oh my god, that's
While
a
keeping
dumb
himself
one.
in the jail cell, Star Platinum acted subconsciously and brought Jotaro objects. Some people point out that Star Platinum is a short-range power type stand, and shouldn't be able to go very far to gather these objects. I'd like to point out that a stand's effective range is not necessarily equal to its actual range.
That's obvious. I don't know how people don't know
generally
this.
decrease in power as they get farther from their user, but it's not out of the question that Star Platinum
You don't
would have
need
been able
power
to
to
gather
pick up
objects
a
from
can
in
of
and
soda.
possibly around As for how the larger objects were able to get inside, we're able to clearly see that Star Platinum can open the cell door on its own. A more difficult thing to address is the first battle against Magician's Red. Star Platinum loses power while Jotaro is being suffocated by the Red Bind. Later on in the Dark Blue Moon fight, which takes place largely underwater, breath seems to have no effect on stands. I can easily see this as a holdover from early concepts for stands, which in Japanese can be read as ghostly ripple. However, on the next page, Joseph still says that stands are created by life energy, which is how they are generally thought of in later parts. Stands are tied to your consciousness, and losing consciousness would make your stand weaken. Jotaro was in his first stand battle and was being strangled. While in the Dark Blue Moon fight, Jotaro is prepared and is holding his breath for no more than 2 minutes. Some people ask how Joseph can look as old as he does despite being a Hamon user. In Part 2, Lisa looked quite young. So why isn't Joseph the same way? Lisa was raised by Straizo and had been learning Hamon since childhood.
Yeah.
After the death of her husband, she secluded herself and did nothing but train in the following years. Joseph, on the other hand, only trained in Hamon because he had to, and had no reason to continue doing so after the defeat of the Pillarmen. Lisa is actually not a very good example to make this argument. Joseph is 69 years old in Part 3, while Lisa was 50 in Part 2. A better example would be Straizo, who at 75 years old and even with constant Hamon training, still began to look older as the years went on.
Yeah.
Back in Part 1, Dio was shown to have created chimera creatures that he kept around his mansion. Some people ask why he never made more of these after he returned. The first answer is that he simply didn't like them, and only really made them to test the limit of his abilities. However, what I think people are missing is that Dio essentially did use this ability again when he grafted his own head onto Jonathan's body.
Obviously.
During the first appearance of Kakyoin, he is seen using a painting while he attacks Jotaro.
Yeah.
He paints over Jotaro's leg, and Jotaro is attacked in the same spot. Many people ask why he never used this painting ability again.
It's not
this
a
is
painting
another one that
ability,
confuses
dude.
me. The painting was never a part of his ability.
Exactly,
It was just an
like-
attack from Hierophant Green. Either an
What
Emerald
people
Splash
ask-
or an attack from one of Hierophant Green's
Dumbass
strands.
questions.
Kakyoin even destroys the painting afterwards, hinting that it has nothing to do with his ability. Some people have said that since we can't see the attack, it couldn't have been from his stand. Well, we don't see his stand when he destroys the painting, and many times in the series we've been shown things happening with the stand being invisible.
It's just a
Later on,
cinematic
Kakyoin
effect,
possesses
dude.
the school nurse by using
It
Hierophant
was probably
Green
just
to
an
control her.
emerald
He
that
is
just
using a
went
puppet
straight
in
and
this
cut
scene,
Jotaro's
but the
leg. I
ability
mean,
is shown to be unrelated.
the number
This
of
further supports
people
that the canvas itself
don't
is
get that
unrelated to
is
his stand.
staggering.
Both the canvas and the puppet are just being used for show. However, Kakyoin's possession abilities are tied to another common question. Outside of this scene, Kakyoin no longer uses his stand to possess people. Well, there are multiple reasons for this. Kakyoin was being manipulated by Dio, and would never harm innocent people on his own. He does still use Hierophant Green to enter people, as seen at the end of the Death 13 fight, and when he saves a little girl from being attacked by lovers. None of Kakyoin's other fights would benefit in any way from using possession. First
Where's
of
the
all,
tentacle
Stan
going?
users can
You're
see
asking
Stan,
the
which
forbidden
will possess.
questions here.
Tower of Grey was too small and fast, so once he caught it, he tore it apart instead. Whole Horse and Jay Guile were too far away, and he wanted to let Polnareff be the one to kill Jay Guile anyway. Possessing Steely Dan himself would solve nothing about the stand in Joseph's brain, and it would just harm Joseph if he attempted it. The younger Darby would be able to see himself being attacked by Hierophant Green, which would count as cheating and cause Kakyoin to instantly have his soul taken. And lastly, Dio, where the entire premise of the fight was that Kakyoin needed to stay a safe distance away from him. One which I find somewhat annoying is the often repeated line, "No one can just deflect the Emerald Splash." Like a lot of Araki Forgot moments, this one started as a joke, but for whatever reason I've seen it lumped in with other inconsistencies as if this is somehow one of them. This is really no different from any other villain character
this is
being
not a
surprised that
Araki
their attack
Forgot
doesn't
moment.
work.
Kakyoin
This line
just
is also
sucks.
from the dub, which makes it a little bit more inaccurate compared to the original
I don't
line.
know.
In parts 1 and 2, the battles focused mostly on Hamon abilities, but starting in part 3, there was a shift towards stands.
How many
Some
people
people
did I
wonder
trigger?
why
Huh?
a change like this was made, and why Joseph didn't teach Hamon to the other characters. It has been shown that Hamon takes weeks of training to use effectively. The group had 50 days until Holly died, and they ended up killing Dio on the last possible day. It is simply not efficient to stop and try to learn Hamon, or to teach it half-assed along the way.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
The main conflict in part 3 is that the forced awakening of a stand in Holly has caused her to become ill, since she is not strong enough to control it. Some people have asked how Holly is not able to control her stand, when children, infants, dogs, rats, and other peaceful people like Tonio or Aya can. I think this stems from a misunderstanding about how stands work. A stand is not necessarily based on a fighting spirit, and more like a strength of spirit. First of all, people like Tonio and Aya manifested their stands through mastery of a craft. Since they became so skilled in a certain task, a stand formed which fit their skill.
Yeah.
This is different from a forced awakening through something like the arrow or the Joestar curse. The Joestar stands were awakened because of the distress signal sent from Jonathan's body. This gave them very powerful stands capable of locating and finding Dio. Since Holly is a peaceful person, she is not suited for this kind of stand. Holly is also not the only person shown in Jojo who had a partial stand awakening, as the user of Cheap Trick in Part 4 was still able to attain a stand, but was unable to control it. Early on in Part 3, stand names were based on tarot cards. Before leaving, the group draws the cards to choose the name of their stand. Enya also used the cards to name the stands of Dio's minions, so why didn't they ever draw the same cards? In a series where fate has repeatedly been shown to be real, and where fortune tellers make multiple appearances in which they are always accurate, I really don't see how people get hung up on this.
Yeah.
They didn't draw the same cards because they're tarot cards, and it was fated to happen that way. It's really that simple. Right after the group leaves for Egypt, Dio is shown using his own version of Hermit Purple to spy on them. A lot of people seem to think this is an abandoned idea where Dio would have had the power of every stand. That is nothing but a fan theory and has no source whatsoever, and the amount of times that I've seen it repeated as fact is insane.
Yeah.
In actuality, this Hermit Purple is the stand of Jonathan's body, as confirmed by Araki himself in the stand dictionary from the Jojo Agogo art book. Many people refer to this stand as the Passion, but this is incorrect. The Passion is Jonathan's stand in the non-canon spin-off novel George Joestar, and in the book it functions completely differently from this stand. The official name for this stand is simply Jonathan's Stand.
I did that mistake actually, I did not know that.
Some people have asked why Dio is able to track the movements of the group so easily, and this is the reason. This is also the reason Dio was able to manipulate the message Joseph read on the TV. The characters Kakyoin and Polnareff were both being shown controlled by flesh buds placed by Dio. They became allies after Jotaro removed their flesh buds. Some people have asked why Jotaro didn't recruit any more people using this method. Many stand users were shown to be following Dio for reasons other than mind control.
Yeah.
Many of them were seduced by him, which Dio has an extreme tendency for.
Oh yeah, you got that right.
Openly about being paid by him. Most of them are just plain evil, and there are even people like Hull Horse who is clearly not being mind-controlled, since he often considers betraying Dio. None of the other stand users were able or willing to be converted to the Crusaders' side.
Good.
In the flashback introducing Jay Guile, he is briefly shown using a shield that protects himself from the rain. I'm surprised people still bring this up, since I really haven't seen anyone talking about it since before the Part 3 anime aired. This is really as simple as having Hanged Man go between reflections on the raindrops to prevent them from hitting him. During the Dark Blue Moon fight, the runaway girl character, later known in the anime as Anne, is introduced. She stays with the group for a short time and rejoins them again before later being sent home. The argument for whether Araki forgot her is really the same as Poco in the last video. She's just a minor character. In the Dark Blue Moon and Strength fights, Jotaro is shown using his Star Finger ability, where he extends his finger to hit things. A lot of people have asked why this ability is not used in more situations, and some even bring up examples from other parts. I'll cover the examples for other parts in those videos when I get to them. However, there is some word from Araki as to why this ability didn't return. He said, as the fights intensified, its frequency of use decreased. This would imply, at least to me, that the ability is not very powerful in the first place. Jotaro has only ever used it as a last resort.
Dude, that's fast.
However,
Starfinger up an enemy's
the
ass.
Viability of Starfinger in my Part 4
It'll be
and
effective,
Part 6
alright.
video. As for within Part 3, the idea that random abilities not constantly coming back means that Araki forgot them is just asinine to me. During the fight against Ebony Devil, Polnareff is blinded and trapped underneath the bed, making him unable to see where to attack with his stand. However, Polnareff is seemingly able to see with his stand inside Joseph during the lovers' fight. What some people seem to have forgotten is that Joseph was showing Kakyoin and Polnareff what was happening on the TV with Hermit Purple. When Rubber Soul is disguised as Kakyoin, he is shown using Hierophant Green to attack the robber. For some reason, people view this as a plot hole, despite Yellow Temperance being a blob that can shapeshift into anything he wants. Others ask how nobody saw this attack happening, since Yellow Temperance is a visible stand, but the fake Hierophant Green is shown traveling low along the ground while the others have their back turned. During the fight against Steely Dan, Kakyoin and Polnareff are shown shrinking their stands to go inside of Joseph's body. Shrinking your stand takes intense concentration to do, and leaves you completely defenseless. Your stand's power also decreases the smaller it becomes. A lot of people seem to think this would have been useful again, but I really see no other opportunities where a stand user could just stand around without being attacked while shrinking their stand for whatever reason.
And making it less
This kind of ability is really only useful against a microscopic stand like Lovers. The next fight is against a stand that takes the form of a sun. Some people ask how Dio, who is a vampire, is able to control someone whose stand is the sun, a vampire's weakness. This is because this is not really a sun. Vampires in Jojo are weak to a specific wavelength of energy. This sun stand would have as much effect on Dio as any other light source, like Magician's Red's fire, a flashlight, or the lit lamps he gladly keeps inside of his mansion. Even if this stand did function like the actual sun, Dio has been shown to
would be a problem.
capable of convincing people to join him with his supernatural charisma. During the fight with Alessi, Polnareff loses one of his earrings. In the following arcs, he is seen with the earring back. The only reason attention is being drawn to this earring is because it was a small hint to the woman that Polnareff was the child she met earlier. Afterwards, it's replaced like any other damaged article of clothing the characters have. Even Polnareff loses the earring multiple times. And in the final arc, Polnareff doesn't get his earring back until after they defeated Dio. Against Darby, Joseph enters a bet that involves dropping coins into a glass, trying not to be the one to make it spill over.
Yeah.
I've seen multiple people asking why he didn't use Hamon to keep the liquid inside the glass.
Isn't that cheating?
This has a very easy answer. Everyone, including non-Hamon users, can see Hamon.
Yeah.
This can be seen even all the way back with Smokey in Part 2, who describes Joseph glowing. Darby would see this happening and instantly know Joseph was cheating,
people actually
which would result in his soul being taken.
Debate
because
on
of this,
things
Joseph
that are
used a
this
more
dumb,
discreet cheating method. Iggy Stan the Fool uses a sand replica of Dio to fool Vanilla Ice. There are a couple different questions surrounding this. The first is how Iggy would know what Dio looks like. When the group's entire goal is locating and defeating Dio and they carry a picture of him around, I don't see why they wouldn't have shown Iggy this picture to let him know that once Dio is defeated, they would let him go home. Another question is how the voice was replicated. People seem to forget that Polnareff is there as well, and that he has met and heard Dio before. Silver Chariot is shown to have an ability to remove his armor at the cost of defense to increase his speed. As with other stand abilities, people ask why the use of these decreased. Most people seem to mention the Vanilla Ice fight, despite speed not really being an issue here. Chariot doesn't have issue dodging the attacks, it only becomes an issue whenever he is unable to see the attack at all, such as when he lost part of his leg, which was after the sand he had thrown to track his movement had gone away. Dio makes his return in Part 3, now with the time-stopping abilities of the world. However, he is no longer seen using some of his vampiric abilities like freezing and space for stingy eyes. Dio makes it very clear that Jonathan's body is rejecting him and limiting his vampiric abilities. Even if he does have access to these abilities, he has little opportunity to use them. Freezing only works on direct contact, and would not work through stands since there is no moisture. And considering that Dio's main goal is to get more Joestar blood to strengthen his time stop, I think that the last thing he'd want to do is expel his bodily fluids in a last-ditch move like Space Ripper Stingy Eyes. Lastly, Dio has become so confident in the world and improving its time stop that he would have little care for those other abilities. Before Dio gets in the car with the Senator, he has a brief line acknowledging how long he has been alive. For whatever reason, people take this line as him saying he had never seen a car before, when he had been shown to travel to America before in Part 6.
That's not what that means.
This is another minor point people blow out of proportion, since it's just a small line to remind people of Dio's age. Clearly, within Part 3, Dio has already seen a car, since he recruited the car-driving stand user, Wheel of Fortune. While Jotaro is fighting Dio, the two of them appear to fly through the air. Really, this is them jumping and propelling themselves with their stands. An unfortunate side effect of the anime adaptation is the conversion of normally fast-paced scenes into much slower ones to include the details from each page. Their time in the air is prolonged because of their clashing
they're just flying.
And the
it's just Dragon Ball in the anime, and there's nothing you can say.
Jotaro is clearly not flying freely, since he is seen using his stand to redirect his momentum. Now,
in the manga, sure, but in the anime, he's just flying.
In Jojo, Star Platinum stopping time. As with the coffin, the biggest Araki forgots seem to have the easiest answers.
Yeah.
Jotaro was gifted a stand capable of defeating Dio from the Joestar curse, not entirely dissimilar to how Jonathan's body and Joseph were given similar stands. The explanation for why Jotaro had to develop his time stop is the same with Dio's Hermit Purple. Dio has had a year to strengthen it, while Jotaro is just starting to learn it and is finally pushed hard enough to use it outright during the final battle. Jotaro tested whether or not he could move within time stop using the magnet. Since the magnet was connected to Dio, it was not stopped in time, similar to anything else Dio holds. Because of this, it would attract Jotaro's magnet, and if he is able to feel this, he would know that he is capable of moving within stop time. Star Platinum's ability is super speed and reflexes, and what is the peak of those abilities if not moving so fast that it's like you stop time? Some also seem to imply that this ability wasn't planned and came out of nowhere. when it has been documented that the World and Star Platinum were the first 2 stands Araki created when planning Part 3.
This is such bullshit. Fuck this.
The final thing I'll be covering is Joseph's revival. This will play into another moment in the next video, so I won't go into too much detail. Joseph's body was clinically dead after the fight with Dio. By doing a blood transfusion with Dio's body and jump-starting the heart,
Dio is stronger,
Jotaro was
faster,
able to resuscitate
more
him.
experienced.
There are a couple things
and he
to go
loses
over
just
with this.
because Jotaro just discovered his ability to stop time, even though Dio has been perfecting his ability for much longer. So just fuck off.
Is that since Joseph received blood from Dio's body, shouldn't he become a vampire? Vanilla Ice was revived with Dio's blood and became one. Why is Joseph any different? Well, a lot of the blood Joseph got back was really just his own blood that Dio had taken only 4 minutes earlier. Even if Joseph was to get some of Dio's blood inside of him,
pissed
that
him
would
off,
be
that's
little
why he
trouble
lost.
for a Hamon user.
Alright.
Jonathan was shown to be able to expel vampiric essence from his body. Eliminating Dio's cells from within his own blood would be as simple as channeling a bit of Hamon. This is supported by Strazo, whose vampire cells were destroyed by his own Hamon. Second, some people question whether Joseph should be able to be revived to begin with. What people seem to miss is how little time he really spent without blood, which was 4 minutes. Even in real life, people have been revived from apparent death after longer periods than that. Others also bring up that Joseph's soul left his body. A detail a lot of people overlook is Jotaro questioning if he's seeing things in that scene, but I'll ignore that. People have gotten very caught up in the specifics behind souls leaving bodies and when someone is really considered dead in JoJo. At the end of the day, like most things in JoJo, it comes down to fate. Joseph Joestar is a character shown to have a supernatural tendency for cheating death, and this is no different. And that was every Araki forgot for Part 3.
Yeah, that one
video
once again was a bit stretched. Like, yeah, his soul was leaving his body. You're just like grasping at straws here trying to explain that. No, his soul left his body for dramatic effect, and it was very dramatic and beautiful. And then it was just a fucking bullshit moment where it's like, hey, you know what? Nah, he's alive. It's bullshit. Don't stop trying to explain it. You lose credibility when you try to explain things that, no, it was done for dramatic effect, and it was just a bullshit, yeah, they're coming back to life moment. There's nothing else to it. What do you guys think? I wonder what you guys think about all these moments. If you agree with the little that I disagreed with. Most of this video was amazing. A few points like that one I disagree with, and I really want to know what you guys think. Let me know down below in the comments.